therapy animal, theoretically, and you took saliva samples throughout the day, like before they were working, after meals, while they're working, and you know, you can find out stress levels that way for the animal at least, and like with the people, you can, there's ways of just asking them how they feel, you know.
And then my follow-up question to that is, like, do you think that we should spend time focusing on sort of those retraining mechanisms or the ways that we could, you know, take into account those animals, or do you think we should be looking for maybe alternatives from using animals like, you know, robotics or cyborg dogs and things like that?
Right, absolutely. I totally agree with Norm in the way that, like, you know, we should stop the oppression right now, not like wait until we have alternatives and things in place. But as far as alternatives go, you know, I think that there are a number of alternatives that do not require the use of animals that have the same exact results as far as like reducing stress levels, having an impact on decreasing, you know, cardiovascular disease and whatnot. And, you know, I did mention like Rima Joma, who's a therapist and animal activist liberationist. You know, she says that herself she will not use animals because of the ethical implications and their exploitation, and because we cannot be sure how they're feeling at any given time. But she says you know, her experience has shown that interacting human to human or other kinds of programs have the same exact results. You know, like a lot of people would prefer to hang out with a dog as opposed to, you know, maybe a therapist, but at the end of the day, you know, if the results are the same, we should go with, you know, the one that's not got as much possibility of exploitation.
And then I also have a question for you, Rob. You know, you talk about how, you know, the ways that it's problematic or how humanity is defined in relation to other animals. You mentioned about how we have more gut bacteria than human cells and things like that. And then you point out the problems that exist within, you know, other movements for this resubscribing to humanism. Can you give me an idea of what it would mean to be human in a world post-humanism?
I mean, I think that one of the first things that we can say is that you would accept that we're not just a human subject. Our conversation right now isn't just me, Robert Glass, talking to you, Joe Schatz. It would be me and like the contingent beings inside me talking to the collective entity that stands over there, right? And I think that it's an understanding that we are all, like, an understanding of collective agency and responsibility that goes beyond our sort of ability to understand it. And the second thing I would say, I suppose as a starting point, would be that we would mean a challenge of the questions of agency. I'm uncomfortable positing this too blanketly, but it would be a statement that some of the actions that we engage in, some of the things that we do, and some of our influences are beyond our control, are beyond what we could say. Like, it would be a challenge to the possibility of rationality and objectivity in the first place. As for, like, the idea of what it means to be human, I'm not sure that we can offer one, and I'm not sure I'm comfortable giving one. Because I think that to think about it coming from a human, like what is going to be de facto humanist presence now, a humanist context now, is going to always shape and define it coming realization that I would like to see develop. And I don't want to tint it too badly beforehand. I hope I didn't spoil the question, but I am.
Yeah, I guess the question that came to me as you were talking is like is relating to Morgan's talk, is that like if you know, if we're speaking as, you know, contingent collective identities, like when I talk, it's, you know, the bacteria inside me too, like then people who have like seeing eye dogs, when they interact with the world, you know, is there a separation between the seeing eye dog and then the person? And if there's not, then how is it that we can make sure, you know, if they're the same being, then how is the mistreatment of the seeing eye dog in the training process any different than mistreating the person who then utilizes the seeing eye dog?
I think that, one, the seeing eye dog probably offers a profound way to understand this, and I wish I had thought of it, unfortunately. I will not disclaim it in future papers. I think that, yeah, if the blind person is operating in the world of the seeing eye dog, there is a direct connection between them, their own senses, their own influences of being controlled by the senses and influences of the seeing eye dog, right? To claim otherwise would be obtuse and would be just irrational, right? But I do think that we can say that the victimhood of the seeing eye dog can be separated from the processes of oppression that affect the blind subject before that, like, connection is made. And I also think that we can say that the that the way that the seeing eye dog is trained and told to shape in the world also controls and shapes the way that humans are told, the way that blind humans are shaped. Like one of the things that I think is interesting, that I used to think was very interesting when I was a kid, and then I grew away from it, and it's sort of interesting to me again, I guess, in this conversation, but also previously thinking about this, is the way that seeing eye dogs are trained not to interact with passersby, even if they're friendly and they want to have an open gesture. And as a result, and people are trained not to try to interact with seeing eye dogs, even if they want to have like a friendly interaction with a seeing eye dog or a friendly interaction with a blind person. And what this ends up doing is creating a de facto ostracization of the blind person from the rest of society, right? Because there's no way you can't like wave them down and say how you do it, like, you know, flag them and say, you stop. And any sort of conversation with them requires them to have an understanding of, like, that you're talking to them, not talking to another passerby there. And so that sort of interaction would be mediated through the seeing eye dog. The seeing eye dog is trained not to interact, not to engage. People are trained not to interact and engage, which engages in a direct social ostracization, which is probably intensely problematic, right? I'm trying to think, like, right now, I can only think of like one former governor of New York, like one prominent blind politician, like one prominent blind person, like in public activism discourse. Most blind people are specifically shut out, specifically because of ocular essentials and the way that our coping mechanisms teach people not to interact and engage. I hope that's an answer. Yeah.
I have a question for this won't be very articulate because I haven't had time to work it through. But is it possible for us to think outside the parochial perspective of our discrete human agency?
Yeah.
And if there is, or if we attempt it, how can we be certain or have some level of assurance that we actually are doing that and are not simply projecting our concept of discrete human agency onto other beings or onto nature as a whole?
So let me see if I can understand your question. You're saying, how can we avoid assigning human qualities to non-humans? Would that be a more accurate way of like how can we break down our own innate humanness? How is it possible to fundamentally break down our own innate humanness? Is that probably a humanist process? All right. I think that you're probably right there. I think the first statement I would say is that I don't think that we can claim the discrete humanist approach because in the world where our neurological makeup and the way that we think and feel is determined by the gut flora inside us, we can't say that that's